They always came in whispers, whispers that clung to Ella and Bella like cobwebs, no matter how many times they moved, how many new towns they tried to bury themselves in. "Did you hear what happened at their last school?" people would murmur, eyes wide with a cocktail of fear and fascination. The twins would keep their heads down, ignoring the stares that felt like hot pokers on their skin. They were used to it, used to being the source of hushed conversations, of sidelong glances that spoke volumes. It was their burden, their shared secret that hung between them, heavy and suffocating. This time, it was a small town, nestled amidst rolling hills and dense forests. A place called Hollow Creek, where secrets seemed to seep from the very ground, mingling with the morning mist. Their parents, ever optimistic, declared it a fresh start, a chance to outrun the whispers, to finally shed the weight of their past. Ella and Bella weren't so sure. They knew the whispers would follow. They always did. They stood at the edge of the town, the sign welcoming them to Hollow Creek, creaking ominously in the wind. A shiver ran down Ella's spine, and she instinctively reached for Bella's hand. Their fingers intertwined, a silent promise of solidarity in the face of whatever darkness this new town held. As they walked down the main street, past quaint shops with faded awnings and houses with sprawling porches, the feeling of unease only intensified. The townspeople, their faces weathered and wary, stopped to watch them pass. Their gazes lingered a beat too long, their smiles strained. Ella could almost hear the whispers starting to form, like tiny insects buzzing beneath the surface. Ella and Bella were mirror images, two sides of the same coin. They shared the same heart-shaped face, the same high cheekbones, the same unsettlingly intense blue eyes that seemed to see right through people. But beneath the surface, they were as different as night and day. Ella was introspective, drawn to books and the quiet solace of her own thoughts. She observed the world with a writer's eye, noting the nuances of human behaviour, the subtle shifts in emotion that often went unnoticed. Bella, on the other hand, craved attention, thrived on the energy of others. She was a chameleon, effortlessly adapting to any situation, mirroring the emotions of those around her. It was a gift, their mother often said, her ability to connect with people on such a deep level. But Ella sometimes saw a darkness lurking beneath Bella's charm, a flicker of something cold and calculating in her eyes. Despite their differences, they were fiercely loyal to each other, bound together by an invisible thread of shared experiences and unspoken understanding. They were each other's confidants, their protectors, their only solace in a world that seemed determined to tear them apart. As they settled into their new home, a sprawling Victorian perched on a hill overlooking the town, Ella couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the precipice of something significant. The air was thick with anticipation, the silence broken only by the distant cawing of crows. She glanced at Bella, who was unpacking boxes with an almost manic energy.
"Don't you feel it?" Ella asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Bella paused, her head cocked to the side like a curious bird. "Feel what?" "Like something bad is going to happen," Ella said, her voice trembling slightly. Bella laughed, a high-pitched sound that echoed through the empty house. "You're always so dramatic," she said, shaking her head. "It's a fresh start, Elle. Time to forget the past and embrace the future."
But even as Bella spoke, Ella couldn't shake the feeling that the past was not so easily forgotten. It was a shadow that followed them wherever they went, and she had a sinking feeling it had followed them here, to Hollow Creek. Hollow Creek High was a looming presence, a Gothic monstrosity of a building that seemed to suck the very sunlight from the sky. Gargoyles leered from its rooftop, their stone faces frozen in expressions of eternal torment. The building had a long and storied history, whispered about in hushed tones by the locals. Tales of tragic accidents, unexplained disappearances, and a general sense of unease clung to it like the ivy that crawled up its walls. On their first day, Ella and Bella walked through the school's heavy oak doors with a mixture of trepidation and cautious optimism. The air inside was thick with the scent of stale sweat, old books, and a faint undercurrent of fear. Students, their faces pale and drawn, moved through the hallways like ghosts, their voices hushed whispers that echoed off the cold stone walls. Ella felt a shiver run down her spine as she followed Bella through the crowded corridors. Everywhere she looked, she saw eyes watching them, assessing them. Whispers followed in their wake, carried on the stale air. She could almost feel the weight of their gazes, the unspoken questions that lingered in their wake.
"Don't let them get to you," Bella said, her voice low and reassuring. She slung her arm around Ella's shoulder, her grip surprisingly strong. "Just keep your head down and try to blend in. We'll be fine."
But as they made their way to the principal's office, Ella couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into the jaws of a beast. The hallways seemed to close in around them, the whispers growing louder, more insistent. She glanced at Bella, whose face was now a mask of cool indifference. It was a look Ella knew well, a defense mechanism Bella used to shield herself from the scrutiny of others. The principal's office was a stark contrast to the rest of the school. Sunlight streamed through the large windows, illuminating the cheery floral wallpaper and the framed pictures of smiling students that adorned the walls. The principal himself, Mr. Davis, was a portly man with a kind face and a receding hairline. He greeted them with a warmth that seemed at odds with the oppressive atmosphere of the school.
"Welcome to Hollow Creek High," he said, his voice booming with false cheer. He handed them each a schedule and a map of the school. "I understand you girls are twins. That's quite unusual for our little town. I trust you'll find everyone here to be most welcoming."
His words were meant to be reassuring, but Ella couldn't help but feel a chill run down her spine. There was something off about his tone, a forced joviality that rang hollow. She glanced at Bella, who was studying the principal with her usual, unnervingly intense gaze. For a moment Ella thought she saw a flicker of something dark pass between them, a silent exchange that sent a shiver down her spine. As they left the office, clutching their schedules like lifelines, Ella felt a strange mix of hope and dread. Maybe this time would be different. Maybe they could outrun their past and finally find a place to belong. But deep down, a voice whispered a warning. The past was never truly gone. It lingered in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to rear its ugly head. Their first class was English literature with Mrs. Hawthorne. Unlike the imposing Gothic architecture of the school, Mrs. Hawthorne's classroom was a sanctuary of warmth and light. Sunbeams, filtering through the paned windows, danced on the spines of the books lining the shelves. The scent of old paper and vanilla candles filled the air, a comforting aroma that did little to ease the knot of anxiety in Ella's stomach.
Mrs. Hawthorne, with her gentle smile and eyes that crinkled at the corners, seemed to radiate a genuine warmth that was disarming.
Her voice, when she spoke, was soft yet firm, commanding attention without demanding it.
"Welcome, Ella and Bella," she greeted, her gaze encompassing them both with equal measure. "Please find yourselves seats. We're about to embark on a journey through the fascinating world of the Bronte sisters."
As Ella and Bella moved in unison down the aisle, she felt the weight of curious gazes upon them. Whispers, hushed and hurried, followed in their wake like the rustling of dead leaves. They chose a desk near the window, the sunlight casting their faces in a warm glow.
Ella could feel the heat of Bella's gaze beside her, a silent question burning between them. "Just act normal," Bella mouthed, her lips barely moving. "We'll be fine."
But Ella couldn't help but feel a sense of foreboding, a prickling sensation on the back of her neck. It was as if the whispers followed them like shadows, clinging to them no matter how hard they tried to shake them off. The first few weeks at Hollow Creek High were a blur of unfamiliar faces and forced smiles. Ella stuck close to Bella, finding solace in her twins' easy confidence and effortless charm. Bella, true to her nature, had already drawn a crowd, her infectious laughter echoing through the hallways.
It was during lunchtime, as they sat beneath the shadow of the old oak tree, that Chloe found them. She was a whirlwind of energy, all bright smiles and witty banter. Her eyes, the color of melted chocolate, sparkled with a mischievous glint that reminded Ella of a playful cat.
Mind if I join you? Chloe asked, her gaze flitting between them with unabashed curiosity. It seems all the good spots are taken, and you two looked lonely.
The more the merrier, Bella declared, her voice ringing with genuine enthusiasm. I'm Bella, and this is my twin, Ella.
Chloe's eyes widened in surprise. Twins? How fascinating. I've always wanted to meet twins. It must be like having a built-in best friend.
And just like that, a bond was formed. Chloe, with her infectious laughter and boundless energy, became a permanent fixture in their lives. She was a breath of fresh air, a welcome distraction from the whispers and the weight of their past. With Chloe as their guide, Ella and Bella found themselves swept up in the whirlwind of high school life. They joined the school newspaper, Bella as a photographer, capturing moments with an artist's eye, and Ella as a writer, her words weaving tales that captivated readers. They attended football games, cheering on the Hollow Creek Hawks with a fervour they hadn't felt for anything in a long time.
Bella, with her natural charisma and effortless charm, became the darling of Hollow Creek High. She moved through the hallways with a queenly grace, her laughter echoing like music, her smile capable of lighting up the darkest corners of the school.
Ella, content to remain in her twin's shadow, observed it all with a writer's keen eye, noting the subtle shifts in dynamics, the way people gravitated towards Bella's light. For the first time in their lives, the whispers were not of fear or suspicion, but of admiration and envy.
Ella found herself basking in the reflected glow of Bella's popularity, enjoying the anonymity it afforded her. She could be herself, without the weight of their past, without the fear of judgment in every glance.
Yet even in the midst of their newfound happiness, a seed of unease lingered in Ella's heart. She couldn't shake the feeling that their charmed life was built on a foundation of shifting sand, that it could all come crashing down at any moment. Halloween arrived in Hollow Creek like a flamboyant guest, draping the town in a cloak of shadows and laughter. The air crackled with anticipation, the scent of bonfires and pumpkin spice mingling with the crisp autumn air. For Ella and Bella, it was a night of joyous anonymity, a chance to disappear into the throngs of costumed revellers, their faces hidden behind masks.
Chloe, ever the life of the party, had insisted on throwing a Halloween bash at her family's sprawling Victorian mansion on the outskirts of town. The house, with its turrets and gables, seemed plucked straight from the pages of a Gothic novel, the perfect setting for a night of spooky revelry. As we made our way through the crowded rooms, the sound of laughter and music washing over us, we felt a sense of belonging we hadn't experienced before. I was dressed as a glamorous vampire, in my element, my laughter ringing out above the din, my eyes sparkling with mischief. Disguised as a mysterious fortune-teller, I found myself drawn into conversations, my palms red and my future predicted with a playful wink.
The night was a kaleidoscope of colour and sound, a whirlwind of costumes and laughter. For a few precious hours, the whispers were silenced, replaced by the joyous cacophony of celebration.
Caught up in the moment, I allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, we were finally free.
But as the night wore on, a chill crept into the air, seeping through the cracks in Chloe's carefully constructed facade of merriment. The laughter began to feel forced, the smiles strained.
I noticed it first, a subtle shift in the atmosphere, like the moment before a storm breaks. The whispers, once silenced by the revelry, began to resurface, carried on the wind that whistled through the trees outside. They were quieter now, more insidious, weaving their way through the crowd like venomous snakes.
Ella couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, a sense of foreboding that settled like a weight in the pit of her stomach.
I found Bella on the balcony, gazing out at the moonlit grounds, her face pale in the silvery light. "Something's not right," I whispered, my voice trembling with a fear I couldn't quite place. "It's just the wind," I said, my voice flat, devoid of its usual warmth. "Don't let it get to you."
But Ella couldn't shake the feeling that the darkness that had followed them for so long had finally caught up, its shadow falling over their newfound happiness like a shroud. As the first rays of dawn broke through the darkness, casting long, eerie shadows across the lawn, a blood-curdling scream pierced the air, shattering the fragile peace that had settled over Hollow Creek. The scream, sharp and sudden, sliced through the remnants of the night, jolting everyone awake.
My heart pounding against my ribs, I exchanged a wide-eyed look with a pale-faced Bella. "What was that?" someone whispered, their voice trembling.
Curiosity, laced with a growing sense of dread, drew the partygoers out of the house and onto the expansive lawn.
As we pushed our way through the crowd, a wave of nausea washed over me. At the bottom of the well, barely visible in the murky water, lay a body.
The victim was Sarah, a quiet girl from their English class.
I remember her as a mousy, unassuming presence in the back row, always scribbling furiously in her notebook.
Now, her lifeless body, pulled from the well's dark maw, lay on the dew-kissed grass. Whispers, panicked and confused, rippled through the crowd.
I watched as they questioned the partygoers, their eyes sharp and suspicious.
The festive atmosphere had evaporated, replaced by a chilling fear that seemed to seep into the very bones of the old house. The days following Sarah's death were shrouded in a palpable grief and fear. The hallways of Hollow Creek High, once abuzz with chatter and laughter, were eerily silent.
The whispers, once muted by Chloe's infectious energy and Bella's radiant charm, now echoed louder than ever.
Even Chloe, usually a beacon of light and laughter, seemed subdued.
It's just so surreal. 1 minute everything is normal and the next someone we know is gone.
The weight of the tragedy, the unanswered questions, hung heavy on her usually bright spirit.
Chloe confided in Ella and Bella one afternoon, her voice barely a whisper. The whispers, once vague and unfocused, began to take on a more pointed, accusatory tone.
I noticed the change in our classmates' behavior. The friendly smiles and casual greetings were replaced by wary glances.
Even Mrs. Hawthorne, her once warm gaze now held a flicker of doubt.
I felt a familiar sense of dread creeping back into my life.
The weight of their gazes, the unspoken accusations in their whispers, was suffocating. Just when the initial shock of Sarah's death began to wane, tragedy struck again.
He was found in his locker, his lifeless body contorted into an unnatural position.
The discovery sent shockwaves through the school and the town.
The air crackled with tension, every student a suspect. Panic, like a virus, spread through the hallways.
The murders of Sarah and David transformed Hollow Creek from a sleepy town with a dark past into a community under siege.
Parents kept their children indoors, their faces etched with worry.
The school, once a symbol of learning and community, was transformed into a crime scene.
The police, their faces grim, patrolled the hallways, their eyes scanning the faces of the students.
The weight of suspicion, once diffuse and unfocused, began to settle heavily upon Ella and Bella.
Our status as outsiders, our mysterious past, all contributed to the growing belief that we were somehow involved.
Even Chloe, their loyal friend, couldn't completely shake off the fear and doubt.
Ella and I found ourselves increasingly isolated, our world shrinking to the confines of our shared bedroom.
Their bond was their only solace in a world that seemed determined to tear them apart. The arrival of the FBI was like a scene from a movie, a stark contrast to the sleepy normalcy that had once defined Hollow Creek.
The whispers, once focused on us, shifted to awed murmurs about the federal agents. The school, already resembling a ghost town, took on the air of a besieged fortress.
Classes were cancelled indefinitely, the halls echoing with the footsteps of agents.
Fear, now mingled with a morbid fascination, hung heavy in the air.
The townspeople watched from a distance as the investigation began. The interrogation room was a study in contrasts, a sterile environment designed to disorient and unsettle.
I sat at the table, my hands clasped tightly in front of me, my heart pounding against my ribs.
I introduced myself as Agent Miller. My questions, delivered in a measured, neutral tone, were like probes.
He wanted to know everything about her life in Hollow Creek, her relationship with Bella, her interactions with Sarah and David.
I tried to answer truthfully, but his unwavering gaze made me doubt my own memories.
The investigation cast a long shadow over Ella and Bella's friendship with Chloe.
Chloe, torn between her loyalty to her friends and the growing fear, found herself withdrawing from them.
We sensed her unease, tried to reach out, but the fear in her eyes spoke volumes.
The whispers had infiltrated their friendship, poisoning it with doubt and suspicion. As the investigation progressed, the walls seemed to close in around Ella and Bella.
Witnesses placed them near the well on the night of Sarah's death.
A search of their room yielded a diary entry written by Ella filled with dark, disturbing imagery.
I wrote those words in a moment of teenage angst and creative exploration.
The diary became the focus of the investigation, its contents dissected and analysed.
I never meant any harm.
The arrest, when it came, was swift and brutal, a public spectacle designed to reassure the terrified townspeople.
Please, I didn't do it. You have to believe me.
Ella, surrounded by a swarm of police officers, was led out of her house and into the back of a waiting police car.
No, this can't be happening. She didn't do anything wrong.
In the aftermath of Ella's arrest, Bella transformed into a fierce advocate for her sister's innocence.
My sister is innocent. She could never do something so awful. Please, you have to believe me.
She met with lawyers, spoke to reporters, and organised rallies.
Ella is not a monster. This is all a terrible mistake.
The evidence against Ella, circumstantial though it might be, was damning. Some whispered that Bella was in denial, others speculated she was complicit. The news, when it broke, sent shockwaves through Hollow Creek. Ella, after weeks of maintaining her innocence, had confessed to the murders of Sarah and David.
No, I refuse to believe it. I know my sister.
As Ella was transferred to a juvenile detention centre, Bella was left to grapple with the devastating consequences, her heart torn between a love that refused to be extinguished and a gnawing suspicion that something was terribly wrong. The weight of Ella's confession pressed down on Bella like a physical burden.
The life I built, the friendships, the laughter, it all feels like a cruel mockery now.
Chloe, torn between relief and lingering doubt, tried to maintain a semblance of normalcy. Bella threw herself into proving Ella's innocence, spending hours poring over case files.
Each dead end, each unanswered question, it's chipping away at her resolve.
The visits to the juvenile detention centre were the hardest. The legal system ground forward with an impersonal efficiency that seemed oblivious to the human cost.
The lawyer assigned to Ella's case, a public defender with tired eyes, seemed resigned to the outcome.
No, I won't accept defeat. Why can't anyone else see what I see?
Bella argued with the lawyer, her desperation bordering on reckless abandon. She couldn't understand why no one else saw what she saw. Late one night, the phone rang. Bella, her senses dulled by exhaustion and despair, answered on the first ring, her heart pounding with a mixture of dread and desperate hope.
Hello?
The voice on the other end was unfamiliar, low and gravelly, sending shivers down her spine.
Who is this?
I know what happened, the voice whispered, the words barely audible above the static. I can help your sister, but you need to meet me. Alone. The instructions were precise, the location a secluded diner on the outskirts of town, a place shrouded in shadows and the lingering aroma of burnt coffee and stale regret. Bella, her mind racing, Her instinct, screaming at her to refuse, felt an irresistible pull, a glimmer of hope in the darkness that had enveloped her life.
All right, I'll be there.
The news of Ella's suicide ripped through Hollow Creek like a storm, leaving devastation in its wake. The official report, delivered with clinical detachment, spoke of a young girl, unable to cope with the weight of her crimes, choosing to end her life rather than face the consequences.
No, this can't be true.
Bella, her world shattered, her heart ripped from her chest, refused to believe it. She had just spoken to Ella, had clung to her sister's whispered promises that everything would be all right, that the truth would come out.
Don't worry, Bella, everything will be all right. The truth will come out, I promise.
The guilt, sharp and suffocating, threatened to consume her. She had failed Ella, had been so caught up in her own grief and desperation that she had missed the signs, the silent cries for help.
How could I have missed it? I'm so sorry, Ella.
In the shadows of secrecy, a phone call was made.
The phone call, the whispered promises.
At a secluded diner, memories resurfaced.
The secluded diner. It all came flooding back to me.
Each detail now held a chilling clarity.
Each detail now imbued with a chilling clarity.
The voice on the phone carried a sinister knowledge.
The voice on the phone, the knowledge it possessed, the offer of help.
It wasn't a concerned citizen, it was Bella herself.
It wasn't a concerned citizen, a helpful stranger. It was me.
The realization struck with the force of a physical blow.
The realization hit me like a physical blow.
A wave of nausea followed.
Sending a wave of nausea through me.
It was all part of a carefully orchestrated plan.
It had all been a carefully orchestrated plan.
A twisted game of manipulation to deflect suspicion.
A twisted game of manipulation to deflect suspicion.
To secure Bella's freedom at the cost of Ella's life.
To secure my freedom at the cost of Ella's life.
The diary held the evidence.
The diary, the evidence.
It had all been planted.
It had all been planted.
Manipulated to paint Ella as a disturbed, dangerous individual.
Manipulated to paint Ella as a disturbed, dangerous individual.
A monster capable of unimaginable acts.
A monster capable of unimaginable acts.
And Ella, ever the protective, selfless twin, had taken the fall.
And Ella, ever the protective, selfless twin, had taken the fall.
She had sacrificed her own life to save Bella.
Had sacrificed her own life to save me.
Blindly believing she was sparing her sister from a fate worse than death.
Blindly believing that she was sparing me from a fate worse than death.
In the aftermath of the tragedy, the weight of guilt became unbearable for Bella.
The guilt was a living thing, a monstrous entity that resided within me, its presence a constant torment. I had become the very thing the town had feared, a monster lurking beneath a veneer of normalcy.
Bella's isolation grew as she grappled with the whispers that once tormented her.
The whispers, once hurtful, now haunted me, echoing Ella's name, a constant reminder of my betrayal, my unspeakable crime. The truth died with Ella, buried deep within the walls of the juvenile detention center.
The burden of her sister's sacrifice weighed heavily on Bella's conscience.
And I was left to carry the burden of my sister's sacrifice, my own existence a living testament to the depths of my depravity. I was free, but my freedom was a gilded cage.
Every moment of Bella's life was a reminder of the twin she had lost.
My every move shadowed by the ghost of the twin I had sacrificed. The echoes of why reverberated in the silence of my lonely existence, a question that would haunt me until my dying breath.
The whispers faded. Life in Hollow Creek assumed a semblance of normalcy, the collective memory of the tragedies fading with each passing season. The well was sealed shut, a silent monument to the darkness that had once gripped the town. The high school hallways buzzed with a new generation of students, their laughter echoing in the spaces where fear had once resided.
But for me, the world was a distorted reflection, a funhouse mirror where my own image was twisted beyond recognition. I moved through life like a ghost, observing the world from a distance, forever on the periphery of true connection.
Chloe, unable to reconcile the bubbly, vivacious Bella she had befriended with the monster she now believed her to be, distanced herself, the pain of betrayal a constant ache in her heart.
Bella's parents, their faces etched with a grief that ran deeper than words, tried to understand, to forgive, but their eyes, once filled with pride, now held a flicker of perpetual sadness, a constant reminder of the daughter they had lost and the daughter they could barely recognize. Each day was a painful exercise in pretense. Bella went through the motions, attending her classes, participating in conversations, her laughter echoing hollowly in her own ears. The guilt, a constant companion, whispered its venomous truths, reminding her of the price of her freedom, the weight of Ella's sacrifice.
Sleep offered no escape, my dreams haunted by Ella's accusing eyes, my sleep punctuated by nightmares that left me gasping for air, my sheets twisted like a shroud. I carried Ella's heart-shaped locket everywhere, the cold metal a constant reminder of my sin, my fingers tracing the inscription, "Sisters forever, bound by heart."
The weight of her secret, the truth that festered within, became an unbearable burden. Confession, once a tempting path to atonement, now seemed like an insurmountable hurdle. How could she confess, knowing that her words would shatter the fragile peace that had settled over Hollow Creek, that her freedom would come at the expense of her parents' sanity, Chloe's already fractured trust?
So I remained silent, my silence a prison of my own making, my existence a testament to the destructive power of secrets, the insidious nature of guilt. I was a paradox, a girl both free and captive, my life a constant struggle between the longing for redemption and the paralyzing fear of exposure.
And as the years passed, the line between truth and deception blurred, leaving her trapped in a maze of her own making, haunted by the ghost of the twin she had betrayed, forever bound to the consequences of her actions.